Join me on this journey into the unknown.
What's going on, guys? James Blonde here with MMOHuts.com. This time telling you about what's new in Path of Exile. Once again, it looks like we've got another expansion on our hands. Late last week, I got to chat with Chris Wilson, producer and lead designer on Path of Exile, about Prophecies, part of a fairly big chunk of content coming to the game early June. So yeah, it's an expansion basically, but I'd also like to get you guys on the same page when it comes to the release schedule methods that Chris shared with me, because you're probably like, expansion? Didn't they just come out with the Ascendancy expansion with all the traps and Labyrinth stuff? Well, yeah, they did, and that's still the current expansion. And they plan on releasing an expansion like that, a major one, every 6 months, and in between, at the 3-month mark, they're going to have one like this. So now that we're in the clear on that, this secondary expansion, as we'll call it, focuses heavily on the most epic challenge leagues that the game has ever seen. So they don't exactly label these types of updates as expansions, they don't want to, but they are significant releases and they're focused on challenge leagues. Cool, got it. The new challenge leagues we see this time are the Prophecy challenge leagues that include both standard and hardcore versions and last 3 months long. So this lovely lady is Navali, and she is a Karui soothsayer. Just so you know, the Karui is the same race as the Marauder class, and in the Prophecy League, you run into her in each town you visit. As you explore Wraeclast, you do your thing, you build up your character, and you also now collect silver coins fairly often, which you can give to Navali in exchange for a prophecy about you, designed so that the areas you enter change so that you actually run into the encounters that you are foretold to.
I see a need in you. A need to peer into the future. For a gift of silver, I can grant you answers.
We're talking about a real fortune teller here. She predicts your future, and it happens that way. In the game, of course, if you choose to accept the prophecy, that is. There are 100 different types of encounters, which range from flooding an area with a plague of rats, obviously that one's not that useful unless you're into that sort of thing, to guaranteeing that you'll create a certain item when crafting. I can see that useful for pretty much everybody. So as an example of one of the existing prophecies and a little bit on how they work, this one is called a Master Seeks Help, and you can have 7 prophecies up at any given time on the Prophecy tab, and they're all active while you're playing. So if you're in an area where a prophecy can occur, it will actually change the area accordingly, and that's kind of how it works. That's how you fulfill your prophecy if you complete it. It changes the area in those conditions. Anyway, the Master Seeks Help prophecy says that you will run into Elrond and complete his missions, and he will grant you double reputation and favor. Now, typically this isn't really that big of a deal because you do actually run into him from time to time, and he isn't particularly interesting. But with the prophecy system, you can essentially control when you want to encounter him, making that encounter much more rewarding for players that are actually looking for Elrond's special items that you can craft from him. Another example is a prophecy that makes some of the iconic fights different. This one here foretells that you will find the tormented spirit of Chevron near Brutus, and you will slay Brutus while he is possessed by her spirit. That doesn't sound very welcoming, but as you can tell, it can completely change the way the Brutus fight is handled, making it a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging when Brutus is able to use Chevron's skills. But this prophecy can be very valuable to some players looking to snag double rewards for bagging both Brutus and Chevron's spirit linked to him. Now, I say that prophecies can be valuable to players, and like you might have guessed, some of them actually show up as items. Or, by giving Navali some extra silver coins, you can seal a prophecy into a tradable item, which is really useful for either freeing up space in the Prophecy tab, seeing that you can only have 7 active at once, or for trading valuable ones to other players. Some of them are apparently very rare and represent difficult challenges with really high payoff. So if you aren't capable of completing the challenge, you can still receive some of the payoff by trading it to someone who can. As an example, you might trade the Elrond prophecy to someone who really wants to encounter him more so than you do. Beyond that, you've got some prophecies that form story chains, telling an ongoing story as you complete each part of a chain of events. When you complete a part, it unlocks the next part to appear sometime in the future. You don't know exactly when, it's not going to be in the next area, and the reward for completing an entire chain is generally a special unique item, some that are either newly introduced or ones that were briefly available in the past and have become valuable since then. As an example of a prophecy chain, we've got this one here involving the Feral Lord, who is a member of the Pale Council. You'll go to the Southern Forest and slay corrupted animals, and as you can see here, there are a lot more monsters in this area than there would normally be. More difficult on top of that. So that's how it actually changes the area around you as the prophecy sort of plays out. Seeing that this is the first part of the chain, these encounters will get progressively harder and different as you go through the chain. Plus, you don't always know exactly where it's going to happen, you just know that it will happen. Really cool mechanic going on here, honestly. As another example, the second part of this prophecy has you slay a powerful beast in the northern forest. Now, this is a guy that's fairly rough to deal with in that he's capable of using a large amount of player skill. So it's this prophecy mechanic that allows them to put in more powerful creatures where they otherwise wouldn't. Like, as an example, this one here, where they wouldn't normally put this in the game just because you'd be walking through the forest and run into this and probably die just because it's too powerful. It's almost boss-like in the middle of a standard location. So it's way more of a challenge than anything you'd ever find in a location like this, but due to the prophecy telling you that it's going to happen, it gives you a little bit of advance notice and you can prepare yourself a little bit more accordingly. So back to what you get for completing prophecies. Remember, I briefly mentioned special unique items. Well, along the same line as the Pharaoh Lord prophecy, we see one possible reward here, Uriel's Key, which is one of 4 pieces that you need to complete the set. And when you combine the 4 together, you get to fight the entire Pale Council, which is a reward in itself. And of course, the nice thing here is that you can also trade these to other players for the pieces that you might need to complete the set, or if you don't want to complete the set, then you can trade off your pieces. That's kind of the cool part as well. Another example of a prophecy type that I thought was kind of interesting, and Chris said was his favorite type, are ones like this that essentially end up making a particularly normal or even crappy unique item very powerful and useful if you fulfill the prophecy. So this one says that you'll defeat Derezo while wearing Bramblejack, which is kind of a joke in the game. It's a very early low-level item that a lot of people even just pass up. And if successful, it will turn into the Wall of Brambles, which, as you can see, adds 2,000 armor to make that piece of gear a much more valuable piece of gear. So some of the prophecies involve killing specific bosses in order to upgrade a previously low-level unique item into a much more powerful one, and this is just one example of that. Now, there are other rewards in regards to completing challenges as well. So if you complete 12 prophecy challenges, you are granted the footprint effect that you see here. After another 12 challenges, you get the weapon effect, and if you manage to get to 36 total challenges, you are granted Yama the White as a pet. This guy right here that you saw with Navali earlier. This is typically something that you would only see available in the cash shop, but these are special because they are only available to players who complete these challenges, making them even more rare and valuable than anything in the cash shop. I wouldn't expect to see too many players running around with the Yama the White. So that's about all there is to the Prophecy Challenge Leagues, but there is still more to this update. Yes, the rumors are true, there is a 4th Labyrinth, and it's accessed through the in-game maps, because it's pretty ridiculous. So each time a player completes the in-game Labyrinth, they get to enchant their helmet with a top-tier enchantment from a new set introduced with this update, giving a substantial bonus to specific skills. And now, for the first time, when they complete the in-game Labyrinth, they receive an additional 2 Ascendancy points, bringing the total possible to 8, allowing players to create substantially more powerful characters than before. The catch to the new 4th version of the Labyrinth is this new Sentinel trap that you see here, that pop up out of the ground and activate an AoE around them that can range from elemental attacks that just damage you to influencing your abilities negatively. They can also slow you down or make monsters around them more powerful, but if you do damage to them, they can be suppressed for a few seconds, so you can get the heck out of dodge. So not only are you having to deal with more deadly combinations of traps in the 4th layer and, some of the trials, you've got these to deal with now. Good luck. This update also introduces some pretty epic new skills, like the Spirit Offering for the Necromancer here. Or the Ancestral War Chief that offers a melee totem that has a larger AoE effect than other melee totems in the past and gives you buffs while it does what it does best. This combination here is probably my favorite. You've got Frostbolt and Vortex, and Frostbolt is fused with Vortex in this situation, causing Vortex to travel versus stay on you. So Frostbolt is essentially the glue that can tie a lot of the cold skills together. It's really cool. And last but definitely not least, this update brings in a lot of performance improvements to the game, particularly in regards to the game's memory management. So with this update, with what they've done under the hood, Chris told me that PoE loads about 7 times faster on loading screens. That's a crazy improvement all around. This also lowers the system requirements to run the game, so not only can you try it on different toasters, it's going to run smoother doing so. The other part of the improvements in this update are focused on the in-game audio. They've overhauled how they're doing the sound in the game. They're using much better technology, which, interesting enough, Chris told me that in the past, when they've improved sound quality here and there in various situations, didn't tell anybody, the players commented on how much better the visuals got, as if they increased the graphics, when in reality, it's just the game sounding better, simulating the experience, and not the visuals, which in turn, I guess, works the same way. Anyway, guys, the new update that isn't an expansion, remember, don't call it an expansion, it's just a huge content update, is headed to Path of Exile on Friday, June 3rd. That's when the new challenge leagues begin, and in the meantime, you can learn more about the new Prophecy challenge leagues, along with plenty other new content coming to the game really soon at pathofexile.com, as well as the site post at MMOHuts.com. Like always, thanks for watching, and subscribing, of course. But until next time, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.